Let's talk about COVID-19 and real estate. We know that there's some conflicting currents out there. We have ultra-low mortgage rates. At the same time, we have stay in place. We have social distancing. What does it mean for real estate? CEO of LePage joins us now, Phil Soper. Phil, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Greg.
Through the means that we now have, of course, because we're doing the social distancing as well. No more guests in the studio, which we are accustomed to. But I'm glad to see your face, hear your voice at any rate. Let's talk about the spring. I mean, the spring, we'd be talking about the spring selling season right now if it wasn't for all of this and what we're seeing in COVID-19. What kind of impact is that going to have?
Well, standard real estate brokerage practices have been turned on their ear in the course of 1 week. And so last week, it would be common to, invite people into your home, just as many as would like to come and see the property. And now those visits, the early visits, are taking place with the aid of technology. Call it FaceTime or Skype, as we're doing today. There's various tools you can use, virtual tools, to narrow down the list of properties that a buyer might see. And then the visit is highly orchestrated, no touching of surfaces, the realtor and a person or perhaps a couple going into a home, not touching any surfaces. It's a really different world now than it was, as I say 10 days ago.
Now, we know we have that technology. I remember a couple of years ago, I went on a field shoot, and you could do a virtual tour of a home, and you think, well, virtual reality headsets are expensive. No, they figured out a way. You put the app on your phone, and you had this cheap sort of cardboard headset you put on, reminded me of being a kid in the late 70s, early 80s. You went to Max Milk, you went to Becker's, you got your cheap 3D glasses, and that gave me the virtual tour of the home. Are we going to see a more rapid adoption given these challenges of these technologies? They've been around for a while.
The technologies are there. Some people resisted them, of course, in some companies, but consumers will demand it. And like all good entrepreneurs, you rise to what your consumer requires of you. And in this case, what they require predominantly is a feeling of safety and actual safety. So, yes, we'll see rapid adoption. We're able to provide through distance learning, too, webinars and videos, step-by-step instruction for our teams across the country to show them exactly how they do this. It's not rocket science. The apps are easy to use, but it does take a change in behavior. Luckily, we're seeing that behavior adopted rapidly.
Phil, when Governor Poloz started cutting rates, of course, the question, because we had been through the real estate cycle and ups and downs that we've been through, the natural question was, what is this going to do to the housing market? Are you simply lighting a fire? At the time, he said he didn't believe so, bringing stability. Is that starting to make more sense now? When he made that comment, we'd seen what happened in China, but we weren't thinking we were going to have these kind of social distancing measures, working from home measures, and now they're here in Canada. Is this just enough to keep things even?
Volumes are down. Our primary listing site, LePage.ca, is the most visited real estate company site in the country. And I can tell you the number of Canadians that are visiting it's dropped by double digits. So there's fewer people looking. There's fewer people engaging in the market. That doesn't mean that there is not buying and selling activity going on, though. Remember, we came through a market correction in Ontario and BC, particularly in 2018, in the first half of 19. There were times in BC where volumes were down by 60% on a year-over-year basis. So it's not an industry that is foreign to the concept of a drop in demand. What we're seeing now, which is a little bit interesting, though, is a more acute drop in supply. It seems that people are more reluctant to have people into their homes than people are reluctant to go look at homes. And there's a generational shift, too. We're finding that younger buyers, in particular, are quite encouraged by much cheaper mortgage rates and frankly, a window of affordability in very expensive cities. And they would like to purchase homes, but there are fewer on the market. Sometimes it's just a delay of what would have been the start of a normal spring season, which would have started last Thursday. That's the typical kickoff to the annual, call it bumper crop of real estate transactions in Canada. And people are saying, why don't we delay listing a home for a couple of weeks? So we do have demand, people who need housing, they need shelter, be it for rent or buy, and the challenge is finding it.
Phil, how closely do we need to watch the jobless rate? Because, of course, for years and years, we kept asking ourselves, there's a lot of government intervention that clearly put the brakes on some big markets, cooled them off substantially, but we didn't get that crash that people were calling for. And the one thing I kept hearing from people, it would be a huge hike in the jobless rate. How closely do we need to watch that number over the next couple of months for what kind of impact it could have on the housing market?
You know, clearly a sharp increase in the number of people out of work would reduce the number of people who frankly could qualify for a mortgage. But I think more importantly is the blow to consumer confidence. If people have a job and it's a secure job, but they're worried about their job or they're worried about their spouse's job or they're just worried in general, they can tend to step back and disengage from major purchases like purchasing a home. So there's really two ways: joblessness and a fear or the concept of an unknown and unsteady economy.
Phil, it's always great to get your insights. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Greg.
I was the CEO of Royal LePage, Phil Soper.